How do you stay calm when your wife ends your marriage on your 50th birthday and treats you like you were never worth anything? Why would a mentor leave a briefcase for years with one short instruction that only matters when your life collapses? What was waiting in locker 243 that made my legs go weak before I even touched it? My name is Stephen Calder. I turned 50 on a Tuesday. I thought it would be a quiet day. I did not want a big party. I only wanted dinner with my wife Marissa and our daughter Lily. I woke up early, like I always do, and I made coffee in the kitchen. The house felt different. Marissa was already dressed. Her hair was neat. Her face was calm, but it was the kind of calm that has a plan inside it. Lily came in late and did not look at me for long. She took her plate and went back to her phone. I tried to make small talk. I asked about school. I asked about her weekend. She answered, but her words were short and careful, like she was reading them from a card in her head. Marissa told me we had dinner plans. She said it was a nice place and that her friends wanted to celebrate with us. I did not like that. I said I wanted family time. She said it was already arranged. She said it would look strange if we did not show up. She spoke like she was managing a schedule, not a home. I drove to the office first. It was my habit. I told myself it would be a normal morning. My company had been running for years, and I built it with steady work. I did not like drama. I liked clear steps, clear numbers, and clear responsibility. When I walked into the building, I noticed two things right away. The front desk did not greet me the same way, and the air felt tight, like people were holding their breath. A junior staff member looked up, saw me, then looked down fast. Another person gave me a small nod, the kind you give when you want to say something but cannot. I went into my office and closed the door. My desk was clean. Too clean. A folder that was usually on the corner was gone. A small framed photo of Lily was turned slightly, like someone had touched it and did not care to fix it. I stood there and breathed slowly. I told myself it was just nerves. Then my phone buzzed with a reminder I did not remember setting. It was a calendar event with a title that did not sound like me. It said something about a transition meeting. It was marked as important. It was set for later in the week. I stared at it for a long time. I did not click anything. I did not answer any calls. I did what I always do when something feels wrong. I looked at the room like it was a system. I checked what was in place and what was missing. I opened a drawer and found it half empty. In the back of the office suite, there was a small storage closet. I used it for old files and extra supplies. It was not the kind of place people cared about. I opened it and saw a briefcase on a top shelf. It was dusty. The leather was dry. I knew it at once because it had been there for years. It belonged to Elias Rourke. He was my mentor when I was younger. He was the first person who told me that calm men can still be powerful if they build things the right way. He helped me learn the boring parts of business that people avoid, like structure, rules, and paper trails. He left my daily life in 2009. After that, we only spoke once or twice. Then he was simply gone from my world. He left that briefcase with me and told me to keep it safe. He said it was not for a good day. He said it was for the day when everything falls apart. I remember smiling back then. I remember thinking that I would never need it. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I lifted it down and brought it to my desk. The handle felt heavy. The locks were stiff. I sat down and took one slow breath. Then I opened it. Inside, there was no money, no jewelry, no dramatic gift. There was only a folded note and a small key in a plain envelope. The note was in Elias's handwriting. It was short and neat. It told me that when my life falls apart, I should go to locker 243 at Union Station. I read it twice. Then I read it again. My chest felt tight, but my mind got clear. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was clarity. Like a light turning on in a room that had been dark for years. I did not tell anyone. I did not announce anything. I left the office and drove home for the dinner. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment with my hands on the wheel. I watched the front window. I could see Marissa moving inside. She looked busy. She looked sure of herself. At the restaurant, the private room was already full. There were people I knew and people I did not. The table was set with care. I saw smiles, but they were not warm smiles. They were the kind of smiles that wait for a moment. Marissa moved like she was hosting. She introduced people. She guided Lily to a seat away from me. She touched my shoulder once, in a way that felt more like a signal than affection. Then the papers came. A server brought an envelope to the table. Marissa took it without surprise. She slid it toward me like it was part of the meal. She told me it was time. She told me I had been living off her patience. She told me I had no real future. She said I had become small and weak and that I did not matter anymore. She spoke in a calm voice, like she was explaining a simple fact. I did not open the envelope there. I did not read anything out loud. I did not ask questions in front of that room. I could feel eyes on me. I could see people holding their phones a little too high, like they wanted a clean view. Lily stared at her plate. I told Marissa I understood that she wanted to end the marriage. I told her I would handle it properly. I kept my voice even. I asked to step out for air. In the hallway outside the private room, my hands were steady. My stomach felt hollow, but my hands were steady. I looked at my reflection in a dark glass panel. I saw a man who looked tired. I saw a man who had carried too much for too long and who had been quiet about it. I walked back in, sat down, and finished my water. I did not eat much. I did not fight. I did not beg. Marissa watched me like she was waiting for me to break. When I did not, she looked annoyed for a second, then covered it with a smile. When dinner ended, I said goodnight. I told Lily I loved her. She did not say much back. Her eyes looked torn, but her feet followed her mother. I went straight back to my office. The building was almost empty. The lights in the hallway hummed. I sat at my desk and placed the envelope with the papers next to the briefcase. I did not open the envelope. Not yet. My focus was on the note. Elias had given me one clear instruction. That was enough. I booked a flight that night. I packed a small bag with 2 shirts and a jacket. I left a message for my operations manager, Nina. I told her I would be out for a short trip and that I would call her soon. I did not explain more. Nina had known me long enough to hear the weight in simple words. At the airport, everything looked normal. People walked fast. Screens flashed with gate numbers. Coffee machines hissed. I felt like I was moving through a movie that was not mine. I kept my face calm. I kept my steps steady. I held the briefcase close like it was part of my body. I landed early the next morning. I took a cab to Union Station. The building was loud and bright. People rolled bags over tile floors. Announcements echoed. I felt small in the crowd, but I stayed focused. I found the lockers along a side corridor. The numbers were neat and clear. I walked until I saw 243. My throat went dry. I went to the station manager's office and explained I had a key for a locker and needed access. The manager asked for my ID and the key. He looked at a logbook and asked me to sign a line. He did not smile, but he was not rude. He was simply doing his job. He walked with me to the lockers and unlocked 243 with a master key. Then he stepped slightly aside, giving me space, like he understood that this moment was private. The locker door opened with a metal click. Inside was a sealed container, packed carefully, with a label in Elias's handwriting. It was heavier than I expected. It was not something thrown together. It looked prepared, like someone had planned for a day like this and refused to leave it to chance. My legs went weak for a second, and I had to shift my weight to stay upright. The feeling was not joy, it was not relief, it was the shock of realizing I had never been as unprotected as I thought, and also the shock of realizing how long someone had been waiting for me to finally need this. I did not open the container there. I did not ask the manager any questions he could not answer. I only nodded and thanked him. I lifted the container out, held it tight, and asked him to lock the locker again. Then I walked back into the station crowd with it in my hands, calm on the outside, and very awake on the inside. I checked into a small motel a few blocks from the station. The room smelled like clean soap and old carpet. I set the sealed container on the desk and sat on the edge of the bed. The air conditioner clicked on and off. I stared at the label in Elias's handwriting. I did not open it, not because I was scared of it, but because I needed my mind to be steady first. That night, I kept thinking about how I got here. People think a marriage breaks in one day. It does not. It breaks in small steps that feel normal while they are happening. You learn to accept the new normal. You tell yourself you are being patient. You tell yourself you are being mature. And then one day, you realize you have been training everyone around you to treat you like a background object. I met Marissa when I was in my late 30s. I was not a man who made big entrances. I dressed simple. I spoke in short sentences. I listened more than I talked. At the time, I had a steady job and a small side business. I was building contracts one by one. I was careful with money. I had no interest in showing off. Marissa was the opposite. She liked people. She liked rooms. She liked attention that felt clean and bright. When we started dating, she said she liked my calm. She said her life felt noisy and that I made it quiet. She said I made her feel safe. I believed her because it sounded honest. In the early years, we worked like a team. I handled the work that needed focus. She handled the social side. When I started taking bigger contracts, she helped with events and client dinners. She made the business look bigger than it was. That helped. I gave her credit for that. I told people she had good instincts. She liked hearing that. When Lily was born, my world got smaller in a good way. I learned her routines. I learned her favorite breakfast. I learned how she ran to the door when I got home. I used to hear her feet on the hallway floor. It was a sound that made the day feel worth it. For years, she would climb onto the couch next to me and tell me small stories like they were important news. I also worked harder. I wanted the house paid down. I wanted savings. I wanted stability. I did not want Lily to grow up with panic around money. So I said yes to long weeks. I said yes to early mornings. I said no to a lot of rest. I told myself it was temporary. Elias came into my life during that build-up. He was older than me, and he did not waste words. He did not talk about success like it was a feeling. He talked about systems. He talked about responsibility. He told me that if you build something, you must be able to prove what you built. He said the world respects what it can measure. He used to look around my small office and point out things I missed. He said I was too trusting with access. He said I should separate roles. He said people get confused when family and business mix, even when they mean well. He told me that calm men need structure, because loud people will try to push them out of their own work. At the time, I thought he was being overly cautious. I told him my wife would never turn on me. He did not argue. He only said that good structure is not an insult. It is a seatbelt. You do not plan for a crash. You plan to survive one. Years passed. The business grew. We moved into a better house. We bought nicer cars. We joined clubs I never cared about. Marissa said it was important for our image. She said clients like to see success. I did not like spending on things that did not build value, but I went along. I told myself it made her happy. I told myself it was part of the job. Then small comments started. Not in public at first. At home. After a long day, Marissa would say I was slow. She would say I did not have energy anymore. She would say she felt like she was carrying the life of the family while I carried the paperwork. She would say that she had to translate me for people, because I was too quiet. I tried to talk to her about it. I told her I was still the same man. I told her calm does not mean empty. She said I was being sensitive. She said I was imagining problems. Then she would switch back to being pleasant, like the conversation never happened. That made me doubt myself, which I think was the point. The next change was how she spoke about money. It stopped being our work and became her standards. If I questioned a large expense, she would say I was acting small. She would say wealthy people do not think like that. She would say I was afraid to grow. She used the word growth like it was a moral test, and if I failed, it meant I did not love her enough. Around that time, Lily started changing too, not in a dramatic way, in a slow way. She stopped running to the door. She started staying in her room more. She still hugged me, but it felt like a habit, not a need. If I asked about her day, she would answer like she was filling a form. I blamed school stress. I blamed teen mood swings. I did not blame Marissa because I did not want to. Then Grant showed up. Marissa introduced him like he was a solution. She said he was good with strategy and positioning. She said he understood modern business and modern branding. She said he had contacts. Grant was smooth, always dressed well, always smiling like he already knew the ending of the story. He shook my hand and called me sir in a way that sounded polite but felt like a label. At first, Grant was only around for a few meetings. Then he was around for dinners. Then he was around for phone calls. Marissa started saying things like, Grant thinks we should do this, or Grant says you should stop being so cautious. She stopped saying, we think. She started saying, he thinks. Grant also found ways to speak over me without raising his voice. If I explained a plan, he would restate it in different words, like he was translating for the room. Then people would nod at him, not at me. It was subtle. It was also effective. I noticed Marissa watching those moments like she was taking notes. I saw her eyes move between Grant and the clients. I saw her smile when they responded to him. It was the smile of a person collecting proof. One evening, after a client event, Marissa told me I had been lucky for a long time. She said I had a stable life because she kept it stable. She said the business was not really mine because without her image work, it would still be small. She said I should be grateful she stayed with me while I aged into quiet. I remember that phrase, aged into quiet. It sounded like a joke, but it was not a joke. It was a way of putting me in a box. I told her I did not like hearing that. I told her the business existed because I built trust with clients for years. She said trust is not the same as value. She said people pay for confidence now. After that, she started bringing Lily into conversations in a strange way. She would say Lily needs a father who looks strong. She would say Lily needs examples of ambition. She would say Lily is watching us and learning. Then Lily would sit there, silent, looking down. It felt like Marissa was using our daughter as a mirror to shame me. I tried to repair things the normal way. I planned small family days. I offered therapy. I asked Marissa what she wanted, clearly and directly. She would say she wanted partnership, but her definition of partnership was me agreeing quickly. If I asked for details, she would say I was difficult. If I asked for time, she would say I was weak. At work, I also started noticing quiet shifts. People stopped coming to me first. They started checking with Marissa's office. Marissa had an office in our building, mostly for appearances, but now it felt more active. Nina mentioned that new vendors were being contacted without the normal process. She said it was odd. She said it was not how we usually did things. Nina kept her voice low when she said it, like the walls might listen. I told myself I would address it when things calmed down, but things did not calm down. They tightened. Then came the morning routines with Lily. She used to come into the kitchen and sit near me, still half asleep, asking for toast. That stopped. She started leaving early. She started taking rides with Marissa. She started being seen in places I never went. When I asked about it, Lily would say it was easier. She would say I was busy anyway. She did not say it in a mean way. She said it like a fact she had accepted. I saw how the story was being written. Stephen is stable, but he is background. Marissa is energy. Marissa is drive. Marissa is the real force. Grant is the modern expert who will help. Lily will follow the person who looks like the winning side. I still did not act. That is the part I keep reviewing. I did not act because I loved my family and I thought love would be enough. I thought if I stayed calm, the storm would pass. I did not understand that my calm was being used as proof that I would accept anything. In the motel room, I sat with my hands flat on my knees and forced myself to face the truth. The dinner was not a surprise decision. It was a planned moment with witnesses. The papers were not the real attack. The real attack was the story being told around me, that I was finished and I should accept that. I looked again at the sealed container from locker 243. I thought about Elias telling me to build like a careful man, not a hopeful one. I thought about the way Marissa's voice sounded at the table, like she was reading a final script. Then my phone buzzed with another update message from an account service. It was not detailed. It did not need to be. It was simply one more sign that someone was moving pieces while I was being kept in the dark. I did not reply to anyone. I did not send angry messages. I turned off the motel television. I sat in the quiet and made a simple promise to myself. I would stop trying to win respect with emotion. I would do this the right way, through the systems that do not care who smiles the most. I woke up before sunrise in the motel. I sat up slowly and listened. The air conditioner made a soft rattle. A car passed outside and the sound faded. I looked at the sealed container on the desk again. The label still faced me, like Elias wanted it to. I washed my face and made a simple plan for the day. Not a revenge plan, not a speech. Just steps. I needed facts. I needed a clear timeline. I needed to know what was changing and who was touching what. I went to a nearby cafe and bought coffee I did not really taste. I opened my notebook and wrote the date at the top. Then I wrote 3 lines under it. Home, business, finances. It felt strange to put my life into 3 lines. But it also felt honest. My first stop was the bank. The branch was bright and quiet. People stood in a neat line. A screen showed numbers. I waited my turn and kept my face neutral. When I met the banker, I asked for a basic review of my access and recent account changes. I said I was traveling and I needed to confirm everything was correct. The banker looked at the screen and his posture changed. He did not panic, but he got careful. He told me some permissions had been updated recently. He said the updates were authorized through the bank's standard process. He did not say names at first. He only said the system had it logged. I asked what I could do to verify and secure my access. I asked what the procedure was, step by step. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse anyone. I just asked for the rules, because rules are something you can hold on to. He explained that certain settings could be adjusted only with specific forms and verification. He said I could request a full list of activity and contact instructions. He also said that if I believed something was done without proper authority, I should speak to the branch manager or a security officer within the bank system. I nodded and took notes in my notebook. I asked for a meeting with the manager later that day. The banker scheduled it and gave me a card. He said he understood. I walked out of the bank and stood on the sidewalk for a full minute. The cold air felt clean. I could have called Marissa right then. I could have demanded answers. I did none of that. Demands create noise. Noise creates mistakes. I needed clean steps. I went back to the motel and sat at the desk again. I checked my phone and email. There were messages from Marissa that looked polite, almost friendly. She wrote as if the dinner was just an adult choice and I should accept it quietly. She mentioned Lily's schedule. She mentioned the house like it was already decided. I did not reply. Instead, I opened my calendar and looked for changes. There were new events, strange ones like meetings I never agreed to. Some had my name in the title. Some had words like transition and restructure. It felt like someone was placing a story inside my own tools. I wrote down the dates and times. I wrote down which account sent the invites. I saved screenshots into a folder on my phone. I labeled the folder with today's date and a simple name, Timeline. I felt calm as I did it, not because I was fine, but because order is how I keep myself steady. Then I went to my company building, not to fight my way in, not to cause a scene. I only wanted to see what the atmosphere looked like and what people believed. The parking garage smelled like concrete and car exhaust. I parked near a corner and walked toward the elevator. A security guard stepped out and met me halfway. His voice was polite. His body language was stiff. He told me he could not let me upstairs without approval. I asked who gave that instruction. He said it came through his supervisor. I asked if it was written and time-stamped. He said he could not show me details, but it was in their system. I told him I understood he had a job to do. I asked him to note that I arrived, that I asked for access, and that I was refused. I asked him to confirm the time. He looked surprised, then he nodded and said he would. While we stood there, the elevator opened behind him. Grant stepped out like he belonged there. He was carrying a small laptop bag. He smiled when he saw me, but the smile did not reach his eyes. He spoke like a manager, not like a guest. He told the guard there was no issue and that he would handle it. He looked at me and said I should not make this harder than it needed to be. He suggested I go home and take care of personal things. I did not argue with him. I did not ask him why he was there. I already knew why. He was there to be seen. He was there to train people to look to him. I told him I was just confirming procedures. I said I respected rules, and I expected everyone else to respect them too. I kept my tone flat and calm. Grant's face tightened for a second. Then he smiled again and walked past me. The guard avoided my eyes. I stepped back to my car and sat inside with the engine off. My hands rested on the steering wheel. I watched people enter and exit the building like it was any normal day. For them, it was normal. That was the problem. They had accepted a new normal already. I called Nina. She answered on the second ring. Her voice sounded careful. I told her I was out of town and I needed two things. First, I needed her to keep notes on any unusual instructions and any meetings she was asked to attend. Second, I needed her to keep doing her job like normal and not to confront anyone. Nina said she understood. She did not ask for drama details. She asked one practical question about a vendor payment schedule. I answered it. That is how I knew she was still herself. Loyal, steady, focused. Then I made another call, a short one. Adrienne Voss was not a close friend, but I had met her through business circles years earlier. She was known for being direct and disciplined. I left a message and said I needed a consultation about a family and business conflict, and that I wanted to handle everything cleanly and legally. I told her I would send a time window when she called back. I did not say more. Messages can be forwarded. I assumed every message could be seen by someone else. After that, I drove to Lily's school. I did not go inside. I waited near the pickup area, far enough away to avoid creating a scene. Cars lined up. Parents stood in small groups. I saw Lily walk out with a friend. She laughed at something, then her face changed when she noticed me. She approached slowly. Her shoulders were tense. She looked older than 17 in that moment, like she had learned how to guard herself. I told her I was not there to argue. I told her I missed her. I asked if we could talk for 5 minutes in a calm way. Lily looked around before she answered. She said her mother told her I might try to pressure her. She said she did not want to be in the middle. She said I should respect Marissa's decision and give everyone space. Her words sounded practiced. The rhythm was too smooth. It hurt, but I did not show it. I asked Lily what she wanted, in her own words, not anyone else's. She looked down and said she wanted things to be easy. That was the word. Easy, not true, not fair. Easy. I told her I understood she wanted peace. I told her I would not speak badly about her mother. I told her I would not drag her into adult decisions. I also told her I would not disappear. Lily's eyes got wet for a second. Then she blinked fast and turned her face away. She said she had to go. Marissa's car pulled up at the curb. Marissa stepped out with perfect posture, like this was a planned photo moment. She looked at me and then looked at Lily. She put one hand lightly on Lily's shoulder, like she was guiding a child away from danger. Marissa did not shout. She did not need to. She told me Lily was busy and that I should stop making things uncomfortable. She said we could handle everything through proper channels. She said that in a tone that suggested I did not understand what proper meant. I nodded and said I agreed. I said proper channels were the right place for this. That was true, even if she did not realize why it was true. Marissa's expression changed for a fraction of a second. Then she smiled again and drove away with Lily. I stood there alone while cars moved around me. I felt something heavy in my chest, but my mind stayed clear. They were shaping Lily's view with comfort and control. They were shaping the business narrative with access and appearance. They were shaping the money side with quiet updates. It was a full removal, not just a separation. Back at the motel, I sat down and wrote everything in my notebook. I wrote what Lily said. I wrote what Marissa said. I wrote the time the guards stopped me. I wrote that Grant was present. I wrote the bank appointment time and the exact phrases the banker used. Then I opened my phone and made backups of the screenshots into a secure folder. I did not label it with emotional names. I used plain dates. I used plain categories. A simple system is harder to twist. The sealed container stayed on the desk. I touched the edge of it once, like I was checking that it was still real. Elias's handwriting looked steady even after all these years. It reminded me of something important. Some people think calm means you accept anything. Calm is not acceptance. Calm is control. That night, Adrienne called me back. Her voice was steady. She said she could meet me the next day in her office for a full hour. She said I should bring a timeline and any basic records I had, even if they were only notes and screenshots. She said we would start with facts and boundaries. I told her I would be there. I thanked her. Then I ended the call and sat in the quiet again. I looked at the sealed container and understood something I had avoided for too long. Marissa and Grant were not waiting to see if I would improve. They were executing a plan that assumed I would stay passive. They were counting on my calm to protect them from consequences. I was still calm, but now my calm had direction. I met Adrienne Voss the next morning. Her office was in a quiet building with plain gray carpet and soft lights. The waiting room had 2 chairs and a small table with old magazines. I arrived early. I sat still and watched the wall clock move. When Adrienne opened the door, she did not waste time. She greeted me, shook my hand, and led me into her office. She asked me to explain what happened in simple order, from the birthday dinner to Union Station. She told me to keep emotion out of it. She said emotion makes people skip steps. I gave her the timeline I had written in my notebook. I told her about the access changes, the strange calendar invites, the bank posture shift, the security guard at my building, and Grant stepping out of the elevator like he belonged there. I told her about Lily's words at the school curb and Marissa's calm smile. Adrienne listened without reacting. She asked for dates and times. She asked who said what and where. She asked if I had any records, even basic ones like screenshots or account alerts. I told her I did. I showed her only the existence of the folder on my phone, not the contents. She nodded and said that was good discipline. She explained that the first job was not to win in one day. The first job was to stop the bleeding. She said I needed to lock down communication, keep everything in writing, and stop walking into rooms alone when I could avoid it. She said my calm was helpful, but it needed structure around it. Then she asked about Elias. I told her he was my mentor and that he had left me a briefcase years ago. I told her the note sent me to locker 243. I told her there was a sealed container now in my motel room. I said I had not opened it. Adrienne did not laugh or dismiss it. She only asked if I could keep it safe. I said yes. Adrienne told me to do 3 things over the next 2 days. First, request basic records through normal channels without drama. Second, build a clean list of witnesses and touchpoints. Third, stay out of public conflict, because public conflict turns into a story that other people control. She also warned me about something simple. She said people like Marissa and Grant often act most confident right before they make a mistake. She said they get relaxed when they think they already won. That is when they send messages that reveal too much. That is when they forget the rules. I left her office and felt steady, not because my life was fixed, but because I had a path. A path is better than panic. My next stop was the county records office. The building was old, with long hallways and signs taped to the walls. I took a number and waited with other people who looked tired. When my number was called, I asked for guidance on how to request public information connected to property and business filings. I did not say I was in a conflict. I did not say my wife was trying to remove me. I only asked how the process works. The clerk explained which requests could be made at a counter and which had to be submitted in a formal way. I took notes and asked for the correct forms. I did not fill anything out there. I only collected the correct steps. The clerk seemed glad to deal with someone who spoke calmly. After that, I walked to a small print shop. I printed copies of my handwritten timeline and made a second notebook that matched the first. I labeled one daily and the other backup. It felt simple, almost boring. But boring is safe. Boring is harder to twist. I went back to the bank for my meeting with the branch manager. Her office had glass walls and a tidy desk. She spoke in professional language. She said the bank follows procedure and logs changes. She said if changes were authorized, it would show who requested them and what method was used. I told her I was not accusing anyone in that room. I said I only wanted full clarity and full security, the standard way. I asked what I needed to do to confirm my identity, confirm my access, and set stronger controls on future changes. The manager explained that certain protections could be added. She told me what steps were available and how they would affect daily use. I asked for the strongest option that still allowed me to pay regular business bills without delay. She gave me a simple plan and a checklist. Again, I did not sign anything in the moment. I only asked for the instructions in writing and asked when I could complete it properly. The manager respected that. She scheduled a follow-up and told me to bring ID and any relevant proof of authority for specific accounts. I nodded and said I would. When I left the bank, I sat in my car and looked at my phone again. There was a new email from Marissa. It looked friendly on the surface. She said she hoped I was doing well and that we could keep things peaceful. She suggested we meet soon with the right people so we could wrap things up quickly. I read it twice, then I put the phone down and did not reply. Instead, I called Nina again. Nina told me the office felt strange. She said Grant was in and out. She said staff were confused but afraid to ask questions. She said Marissa had held a short meeting and spoke like she was already in charge. Nina told me people were being told that I was stepping back for health and family reasons. That statement hit me hard because it was clean and believable. It made me sound unstable without saying it directly. I asked Nina to keep notes on those statements. I asked her to track who said them and in what setting. Nina said she would. She sounded angry, but she kept it controlled. She said she did not like being used as a prop in someone else's story. I told Nina to stay professional. I told her I would not ask her to risk her job for me. I told her I only needed her to observe and document, the same way she would for any operational issue. Nina said she understood. That afternoon, I went to a coffee shop near the old warehouse district. It was a place Elias used to like. He once told me he liked that neighborhood because it showed honest work. Brick buildings, loading docks, plain people doing real tasks. No shine, no performance. I sat by the window with a plain drink and watched the street. I opened my notebook and wrote the names of 2 long-term clients. Then I called them one by one. I kept the calls short. I did not ask them to take sides. I did not mention Marissa or Grant by name at first. I only asked if anyone had contacted them about changes at my company. Both clients hesitated before answering. That told me enough. Then they each said someone had reached out with a new direction message and suggested that I was moving away from day-to-day decisions. I thanked them for being honest. I told them I would contact them again soon, once I could speak clearly about what was real and what was not. I did not promise outcomes. I promised clarity. Both clients said they respected that. When I hung up, I felt 2 opposite things at once. I felt pain because my work was being rewritten. I also felt focus because the pattern was now clear. This was not just a marriage ending. This was a removal plan across every part of my life. Back at the motel, I sat at the desk and looked at the sealed container again. I still did not open it. I knew opening it would change the pace of everything. Once I opened it, I would be responsible for whatever it carried. I wanted my steps ready before that. I spent the evening organizing my digital folder. I separated it by date. I saved the calendar invites. I saved the access alerts. I saved Marissa's recent messages. I took a screenshot of each and saved it twice in 2 separate places. I wrote the file names with the same format so nothing looked emotional or random. Later, my phone rang again. It was Lily. Her voice sounded small. She told me her mother said we should keep contact limited for now. She said it would help everyone adjust. She said she was stressed and she did not want conflict. I told Lily I understood her stress. I told her she did not need to carry adult decisions. I told her I would not pull her into arguments. I also told her I would always answer her calls. I said if she ever needed a ride or a quiet place to talk, I would be there. Lily went silent for a moment. Then she asked me if I was leaving town for good. That question hit me harder than anything else that day. It meant she was being told a story where I'd disappear. I told her no. I told her I was handling paperwork and meetings, not leaving her life. I told her I loved her and that love does not end because adults are messy. Lily did not say much after that. She said she had to go and ended the call. When the room got quiet again, I noticed how tired my body felt. My mind was working like a machine, but my shoulders were heavy. I stood up and stretched. I looked in the mirror and saw deep lines around my eyes. I looked older than I did a week ago. That night, I received another email. This one was not from Marissa directly. It was an invitation from a company event organizer. It announced a rebrand gala at a hotel ballroom. It listed key clients, partners, and local business leaders. It said there would be a short presentation about the next chapter. I read it slowly. I could see the plan in it. A public stage, friendly lighting, a clean story told to the people who mattered. I placed the phone face down on the desk. I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence under today's date. They are planning a celebration without me, and they want it to look final. Then I closed the notebook, turned off the lamp, and sat in the dark for a long time. I did not feel rage. I felt the steady understanding that some people only respect what comes with formal weight, and I was done trying to earn respect by staying quiet. The next morning, I woke up with the event invite still in my mind. The rebrand gala was not just a party, it was a stage. Marissa and Grant wanted a clean ending, with people clapping while I stood outside the story. I made coffee in the motel room with a small machine that tasted like warm plastic. I did not care. I opened my notebook and wrote a short list. Bank, records, Nina, clients, Adrienne, hotel. I kept the words plain on purpose. Plain words keep me calm. At the bank, I met the manager again. I brought the IDs they asked for. I followed their checklist in the exact order. I asked for stronger controls on future changes, the kind that makes it harder for someone to move things quietly. The manager explained the impact again. I told her I wanted safety more than convenience. She spoke in the same professional tone, but I could tell she understood the situation was serious. She did not ask personal questions. She only focused on procedure. I respected that. When I left, I sat in my car and wrote the time in my notebook. I wrote the manager's name. I wrote the steps I completed, not because I wanted to build a weapon, because I wanted a clear trail that I did the right thing the right way. After that, I went back to the county office and submitted the requests Adrienne recommended. I kept my face neutral. I did not show frustration. I spoke like I was doing routine work, because that is how you keep people from reacting emotionally. Most systems respond better to calm than to pain. By early afternoon, I was back in Adrienne's office. She asked me what I wanted most. She asked me to say it in one sentence. I said I wanted my life to stop being moved around by people who think I will accept anything. Adrienne nodded once. She told me we would move step by step. She told me to avoid direct confrontation until the right moment. She said if I tried to argue with Marissa now, Marissa would pull me into a loud fight and turn it into a story. Adrienne said I needed to stay in the world of facts, not in the world of emotions. I told her I agreed. She also told me something that was hard to hear. She said I should prepare for Lily to act distant for a while. She said teenagers follow the side that looks stable. She said I could not demand loyalty from a child with pressure. I could only keep the door open and keep my behavior clean. I swallowed and said I understood. Then Adrienne asked about the sealed container again. I told her it was still closed. I told her I had kept it with me and I had not let it out of my sight. She told me to keep it that way. She told me to treat it like something important, but not magical. She said in the end, the law respects proof, not stories. I left her office with my mind steady. That evening, I called Nina and asked her to meet me the next day at a neutral place near the hotel. I told her I would be back in town soon. I told her I needed her to stay calm and professional, the way she always is. Nina told me she had been doing exactly that, even when it felt hard. She also told me Grant had been walking around the office like a manager. She said he spoke to vendors like he owned the place. She said he had even suggested changes to internal routines that made no sense. Nina said the staff looked confused, but they did what he said because Marissa stood beside him and smiled. I asked Nina if anyone mentioned me directly in front of large groups. Nina said yes. She said Marissa told people I was stepping back and that Grant was helping with the new vision. Nina said the word vision was said many times, like it was a spell. I told Nina to keep noting it. I told her not to argue with anyone. Nina said she would not. She said she would keep her head down and her notes clean. That night, in the motel room, I packed my bag. I folded my clothes carefully. I put my notebook in a side pocket. I placed the sealed container inside a larger travel case that could lock. I checked the lock twice. I put the old briefcase back into the same bag because it felt like it belonged close to the container. I slept a few hours, then flew back home. When I arrived, I did not go to the house. I did not want a doorstep scene. I checked into a small rental apartment I had used before during long work projects. It was simple. A couch, a small table, a bedroom with plain curtains. It smelled like fresh paint and empty rooms. I stood in the living room and let the silence settle. It felt strange to be away from my own house, away from the life I built, but it also felt safer. In that quiet space, nobody could corner me. I showered, shaved, and put on simple clothes. Not a suit, not something dramatic. Just clean and respectful. Then I drove to meet Nina at a cafe near the hotel. Nina arrived with a calm face, but her eyes showed stress. She sat across from me and spoke softly. She told me more details about what she had seen. She described who was meeting whom, and when, and where. She described how Marissa's tone changed when certain clients were present. Nina said Marissa acted warm in public and cold in private, like she was switching masks. I thanked Nina. I told her she did not have to risk her stability for me. Nina told me she was not doing it for drama. She said she was doing it because what was happening was wrong and because the company mattered to her too. I nodded and kept my voice steady. I told her we would handle everything through formal steps. I told her to keep her job safe. I told her to keep observing and to keep her notes. Nina agreed. After the cafe, I sat in my car and made 2 more calls to clients. The same pattern came up. They had received friendly messages about a fresh start. They had been told I was tired and stepping away. One client said they were surprised because I had never sounded tired in our calls. I told them I would reach out again soon. I told them I wanted them to hear the truth from me directly when the time was right. I did not ask them to do anything yet. I only asked them to hold off on big decisions for a short time if they could. Both clients said they could do that. I drove back to the apartment and sat at the table with my notebook open. I wrote down everything, then I looked at the sealed container again. For the first time, I almost opened it. My fingers rested on the edge of the lid. I could feel the temptation to know fully what Elias left for me, but I stopped myself. Adrienne was right. Proof matters. Sequence matters. If I opened it too early and did something careless, I could ruin the advantage of doing things properly, so I left it closed. I locked it away again. I took a long breath and let the moment pass. Later that day, Lily texted me a short message. She asked if I was coming to the hotel event. I stared at the screen. The question felt like a test. I could imagine Marissa nearby watching Lily type. I could imagine Grant smiling like this was a smart move. I replied with 1 sentence. I told Lily I would always show up when it mattered, and I would always behave with respect. A few minutes later, Lily replied with a single word that did not answer anything. It was the kind of reply that ends a conversation without closing the door. That evening, I drove to the hotel early. The lobby was bright and full of quiet movement. Staff rolled carts. Guests crossed the floor with luggage. The scent of polished wood and air freshener mixed together. I walked slowly and took in details like I always do when I enter a space that matters. I saw a banner for the gala near the ballroom hallway. I saw a list of sponsors on a board. I saw my company's name printed in a new style. It felt like seeing my own face on a poster with a different smile. I stood near a pillar and watched people arrive. Marissa came in with a small group. She wore a confident expression, like she had already won. Grant walked beside her, speaking with his hands in a relaxed way. People leaned in toward him. People laughed. They greeted Marissa like she was the center of the story. Lily walked a step behind them. She looked uncomfortable in a dress that seemed chosen for her. She scanned the room like she was searching for a safe corner. When she saw me, her eyes widened slightly, then she looked away fast. I did not chase her. I did not wave like I was trying to prove a point. I stayed still. I let her choose whether to approach. A hotel staff member asked if I needed help. I told him no, thank you. I said I was here for the event. The staff member nodded and moved on. I took 1 slow breath, then another. I was not there to create noise. I was not there to trade sharp words. I was there because some people only understand consequences when they arrive in a formal room with witnesses. When the ballroom doors opened, I walked in with steady steps and a calm face, like I belonged there. Because I did. The ballroom smelled like polished wood and perfume. Soft lights moved across the ceiling. A small band played steady background music. People held glasses and spoke in bright voices. I walked in like I belonged because I did. I did not rush. I did not hide. I chose a spot near the side where I could see the stage, the main tables, and the doors. Marissa was near the front with Grant. They stood close to local business leaders and a few of my long-term clients. Marissa looked relaxed, like the night was already decided. Grant moved through the room like a man who enjoyed being watched. Lily sat at a table with 2 women I recognized from Marissa's social circle. Lily's posture was stiff. She kept her eyes down more than normal. A host stepped onto the stage and started talking about a new chapter. He spoke like he was reading a script. He mentioned growth, vision, and fresh energy. People smiled and clapped at the right moments. Then the host turned serious and said it was time to recognize the past and welcome the future. He said my name as if it was part of a clean story. He said I had built a foundation and that the company would now move forward in a new direction. A few heads turned toward me. Some people looked surprised, some looked excited, like this would be entertainment. I walked forward without changing my pace. I did not wave. I did not try to charm anyone. I only climbed the small steps to the stage and stood where the light hit my face. Marissa stepped closer. She spoke to the host and then addressed the room. She spoke like she was proud and disappointed at the same time. She said I was stepping back for personal reasons. She said I had been tired and stuck in old habits. She said Grant had been helping her modernize everything. She said the company needed strong leadership for the future. I watched her calmly. I did not correct her sentence by sentence. I knew the room was not going to be convinced by emotion. The room would be convinced by formal weight. When Marissa finished, the host looked at me as if waiting for my farewell. I asked for 1 minute to clarify something important for everyone's protection, including clients, staff, and partners. My voice was steady. I kept it simple. The host hesitated. Marissa's smile tightened. Grant's eyes narrowed for a moment, then he tried to look amused. Adrienne Voss stepped out from the side aisle and approached the stage. She did not rush either. She walked with a folder in her hand, and her posture was straight. She introduced herself to the host in a quiet way that still carried authority. She stated that she was present in a professional role and that what was about to happen involved formal governance and ownership. The room's energy changed. People stopped sipping. Phones lowered a little, not out of respect, but out of uncertainty. Grant tried to speak over it. He told the host there was no need for this. He suggested I was creating discomfort. He said I should handle personal issues in private. Adrienne told him calmly that this was not personal theater. She said the event's printed materials used company branding and implied decisions that had not been properly authorized. She said that created risk for everyone in the room. She said the correct step was to clarify authority before anyone relied on statements made from the stage. I reached down and lifted the travel case I had kept with me. It had been at my feet, plain and uninteresting, like any bag. I placed it on a small table near the microphone. I opened the lock and removed the sealed container. A quiet sound moved through the room, not applause, not laughter. It was the sound people make when they realize a story has a second layer. I turned the container so the label faced me. Elias's handwriting looked steady under the stage light. I opened it carefully. Inside was a thick binder, a smaller envelope with notary markings, and a separate packet sealed with tape that had dates written on it. There was also a letter in Elias's handwriting, folded once with my name on it. I held up the letter first, not to show every word, but to show it existed. I told the room, in simple terms, that Elias Rourke had mentored me when I built the company. I said he helped me set up structure years ago, structure I never needed to use until now. I opened the letter and read only the parts needed to explain the purpose. I kept it short and factual. Elias had written that some people confuse quiet men with powerless men. He wrote that calm people can still be removed if they do not build formal safeguards. He wrote that he had prepared a backstop for the day someone tried to erase my role through social pressure and access tricks. I did not call Marissa names. I did not accuse her of feelings. I only said that, over the last week, my access to business systems and financial tools had been changed while meetings were scheduled in my name without my consent. I said those facts had timestamps and logs. Then I opened the binder. Adrienne stepped closer and placed her folder next to it. She pointed to key sections and explained in plain language what the documents meant. She said the company's structure included a controlling authority mechanism held outside day-to-day management. She said this mechanism was designed to prevent removal through informal pressure or internal access changes. She did not speak dramatically. She spoke the way professionals speak when they want the record to be clean. Terrence Webb, the investor representative, stood up from his table. He looked uncomfortable, like he wished this was not happening in public. But he walked forward because he understood risk. He asked to review the notary markings and the signatures. Adrienne handed him the packet. Terrence read quietly. He asked 2 short questions about dates and the entity names. Adrienne answered both. Then Terrence asked if there was a way to confirm authenticity immediately without delay. Adrienne said yes. She said the binder included contact instructions for the registered agent and the corporate counsel tied to the company's formal filings. She also said the packet included a sealed verification page that matched a record held with a third party. Terrence took a breath and signaled to someone near the front. A man in a plain suit stepped forward and identified himself as counsel for one of the stakeholders. He asked to see the first page, the signature page, and the notary stamp. Adrienne allowed it. He reviewed it for less than a minute, then his face changed the way faces change when they see something they cannot argue with. Grant tried to laugh. He said it looked like old paperwork, and he suggested it was irrelevant to modern operations. He said everyone knew Marissa had been leading. Adrienne told Grant evenly that leadership and authority are not the same thing. She said contracts define authority, not confidence. She said that if he continued to present himself as decision-maker without formal standing, it could expose him personally. Grant's smile disappeared. He He took a step back as if the air had become colder. Marissa stepped in again. Her voice sharpened. She said this was humiliating for the family. She said I was trying to punish her in front of people. She said I was acting out because I could not accept being left behind. I looked at her and kept my tone steady. I said I was not here to punish anyone. I said I was here to correct a false public record before it harmed staff and clients. I said the company was not a toy for anyone's image. I said people's jobs and contracts depend on clear authority. Then I did one thing that made the room go quiet. I asked Terrence and the council to step into the adjacent conference room immediately, along with Adrienne, the host, and the hotel's event manager. I said we would hold a formal, short governance meeting right now, before another sentence was spoken on stage. The host looked confused. The event manager looked nervous. Terrence nodded because he understood that the fastest way to calm a risk is to put it into a formal room. A small group moved off the stage and into the conference room. People in the ballroom watched, trying to read faces. Marissa stayed frozen for a moment, then followed with Grant, as if refusing would make her look guilty. Inside the conference room, the tone changed instantly. No music, no lights, no smiles, just chairs, a table, and paper. Adrienne placed the binder in the center and guided the process in a clean order. She presented the relevant sections and explained what was being activated and why. She referenced the access changes, the public claims being made tonight, and the risk created by implied authority. She said the purpose of this meeting was to confirm control and to stop unauthorized actions. Terrence asked Grant a simple question about his formal role. Grant tried to describe himself as a consultant. Terrence asked if there was a signed authorization granting him decision power. Grant said Marissa approved him. Terrence asked if the company approved him under the operating rules. Grant did not answer clearly. Marissa tried to take over the conversation. She said she was the face of the company and that everyone supported her. Adrienne asked if she held the controlling authority defined in the binder. Marissa said she did not need it. Adrienne said needing it and having it were different things. Terrence's counsel made a brief phone call. He spoke quietly and listened, then ended the call. He stated, in a calm voice, that the documents aligned with the company's filed structure and that the controlling authority sat with me under the conditions described. He said the attempt to present a new leadership story without formal process was not valid. Marissa's face went pale. Grant stared at the table as if it had betrayed him. Then Terrence did something simple and final. He asked for keys, access badges, and any company devices that were being used under assumed authority. He stated that, effective immediately, operational access would be restored to the proper controller and reviewed under formal supervision. The hotel event manager opened the door slightly and looked in, waiting for a sign. Terrence told him the stage announcements should pause until further notice. The manager nodded quickly, grateful for clear instruction. Adrienne handed me a short printed notice from her folder and asked me to read it and confirm it. It stated, in formal language, that control and authority were clarified under the existing structure and that any prior claims made tonight were not authorized. I read it. I confirmed it. My voice did not shake. Marissa tried to speak again. Terrence held up one hand and told her this was no longer a social conversation. He told her it would proceed through formal channels now. Grant opened his mouth as if to argue, then stopped. He looked like a man realizing the room he chose was not his room anymore. We walked back into the ballroom together. The music had stopped. People stood around in small clusters, whispering. When Terrence returned with Adrienne and me, heads turned fast. The host stepped back from the microphone like it had become dangerous. Terrence addressed the room in a short, professional way. He said there had been a governance clarification. He said the company's controlling authority remained with me and that any transition narrative would be paused until proper review was completed. He said clients would receive official communication through correct channels. Marissa stood near the front, stiff and silent. Grant stayed a step behind her, looking small for the first time since I met him. A hotel staff member approached with a small tray. On it were a badge and a key ring. He walked to the table near me and set them down carefully, as if placing them on a record. The sound of the keys touching the wood was quiet, but in that moment it was louder than the whole band had been. I looked at the keys, then I looked at the empty chair beside Marissa's table, where she had been sitting like a queen less than an hour earlier. Marissa did not sit back down. She did not make another speech. She simply stood there while the room adjusted around her and the meeting continued without her.